Welcome, my friends of the interwebs, or should I say political friends of the interwebs. Hey, listen, I want everybody to do me a favor. Just like in the last video, let me know in the comment section if the audio on this is getting better. I turned the laptop off, so you shouldn't hear that fan noise. I really am trying to tweak the mic. A lot of you gave me some really great advice, and I appreciate it. This is a work in progress. Most of you know that I've set a goal for myself to actually start podcasting in January. And I'm working towards that goal. Getting the sound right, setting up my system is paramount. I've actually spent some time at GoDaddy.com, GoDaddy.com, home of Danica Patrick, and I registered some domain names. By the way, this is going to be a political video. Just give me a second. I just want to get you guys up to speed a little bit. These are the names I've donated. These are the domain names that I've registered. All right, mbvnetworks.com. Mad Bad Voodoo, spelled with 2 O's, like somebody would spell it if they weren't drunk like I was when I made the name Mad Bad Voodoo. And also, of course, Mad Bad Voodoo, spelled with 1 O. And ColonelRichardHunter.com. So I registered the 4 domain names, like 40 bucks. And then fairly soon I'm going to settle on some hosting options. Sorry about that. Going to settle on some hosting options, and then start working on the website. I'll be getting a hold of Colonel Tony, and a couple of other people have volunteered some help with that. And then it's just, you know, like I said, slowly moving towards that that goal that I have set for myself. If any of you out there that are subscribers of mine, politically podcast, talk about political stuff, hit me up. Let me know. I'd like to know who you are. I'd like to check out your stuff. And I've got some ideas that I want to throw at you as well. Okay, speaking of political friends, let's get to the meat of this video. I just got done watching a video by Van. Oh, his YouTube name is Guns and Gear. Van has been a friend of mine on YouTube forever. YouTube is like, I don't know, a YouTube year is like a dog year. It's like 7. So I've probably known Van for 21 years. It seems like it, though. Really great guy. He and I don't exactly see eye to eye on a lot of political issues. He's a big union guy. Although I am a lifetime member of the UTU, I have nothing but disdain for unions, you know. But ultimately, we do have one thing in common. We both love guns. And so I think most people in life can find common ground. And actually, I've talked to Van probably more, almost, well, not more. He's in the top 5 people that I've talked to as far as time-wise on YouTube. And he's a really super great guy. So I'm going to leave a link to his video. You should check it out for sure. Now listen, he made some really important points. It was a very well thought out video. Van is very skeptical about Republicans being supporters of the Second Amendment. And he brought up a couple of points that were very valid points. I'm not going to try to argue against them. I would like to give a little background on those, though, but definitely am not condoning either President Reagan or George Bush for signing any kind of gun legislation that ended up banning weapons. But he made a good, valid point that, you know, basically he said the Democrats talk about banning your guns, but Republicans ban your guns. Okay. Okay. Well, you know, listen, first and foremost, I want to get this out, and I know that I've said this a million times. I am not a huge Mitt Romney fan. I'm not. He wasn't my horse in the primaries, but I said during the primaries that I would support whomever ended up winning the nomination for the Republican Party. I do consider myself to be a Republican. I consider myself to be a fiscal conservative, which is why I could never be a Democrat, because they're all about taxing me and giving it to deadbeats. And that's not, of course, that's a generalization. But for the most part, true. Anyway, Van's head's exploding right now. You know, ultimately for me, it was about, you know, picking a team. Literally picking a team. And when it comes down to it, you have to make your decisions based on who you think represents your values and your ideas the most. So for me, between the Democrats and the Republicans, it was the Republicans by a long shot. And it always has been. I mean, as far back as Ronald Reagan. So now, let's get to Ronald Reagan. Because Van made a legitimate point that Ronald Reagan actually signed legislation that banned fully automatic weapons, or what it did was, for all intents and purposes, any weapons manufactured after a certain date were no longer permissible. So if you had the older weapons, you could have them fully automatic, like an old Uzi or something, but you couldn't have anything new imported. So the Uzis that were here were the Uzis that were here. And there weren't going to be any new ones imported, and that was a serious gun ban. Like I said, I'm not going to defend Ronald Reagan signing that bill, but I will say this to Van. Because Tip O'Neill, you have to understand this, and I'm being very cautious not to sound like an Obama bot here, but I remember what Reagan inherited, and it was devastating. Tip O'Neill was in charge of the House. Well, literally, the Democrats were in charge of the House and the Senate. Now, Van's very right. The Second Amendment shouldn't be fooled around in backroom deals. And I agree with that 1,000%. But Van, when you start pointing fingers at Republicans and saying that they're the ones you have to watch, you're forgetting that there were the Democratic Speaker of the House and the leader of the Senate, the majority leader of the Senate, in that back room with Ronald Reagan. Now, I don't know, I wasn't there obviously, but Reagan, clearly Reagan felt, and like I said, I'm not making any excuses for him, but he clearly felt that in order to get what he needed to get our country back on track, he had to give something, and Democrats are always looking to ban our guns. Always. Whether it's Republicans that actually sign on the dotted line or not, the Democrats are the ones that bring it to the table. But like I said, it was wrong of Reagan to do. Reagan wasn't perfect, but he was, in my opinion, the greatest president that we've had in my lifetime, and arguably in modern time. Yeah, that is my opinion. So, like I said, not making excuses for Ronald Reagan, but I don't know. I'd like to have been in that back room, you know. But ultimately, the buck stopped at his desk, and he signed the legislation that the Democrats presented to him. The Democrats were in charge of the House and the Senate. So, bad on Reagan. But thank God he got us out of the ditch, because it was ugly. It really was. It was ugly. And then the Bush thing. Now, Bush signed a deal that basically said a certain amount of parts of any gun had to be manufactured in the United States. Now, once again, that was, I'm sure, a backroom deal, and I can only speculate that American arms manufacturers were freaking out about the Chinese dumping all kinds of arms. I mean, when I bought my first AK-47, I paid like $300 for it, literally, and it was a top-of-the-line AK-47. And every time I went to a gun show in the early 90s, everywhere you looked, there was just oodles and oodles and oodles of Chinese and Romanian, I mean, all kinds of just AK-47s everywhere. AK-47s, SKSs, and a ton of other weapons. So my guess is that the American arms manufacturers basically lobbied the shit out of the President of the United States and said, look, you know, can you hook us up, because they're going to kill us. And let me show you something real quick. I'm going to show you guys something. Hang tight. This is impromptu. I did not expect to do this. This is going to be a separate video for me. You probably can't see it very well, but this is a knife. This is a folding knife. And I got this at Costco. Or I'm sorry, excuse me. Walmart. Got this knife at Walmart. It's a pretty... looks to be a fairly decent folder. It was $1. Yeah, $1. Now, I got a whole video coming about that, but I can tell you that my guess is the American gun manufacturers were sweating bullets, literally. And so Bush did something about it. And now, yeah, you can still buy an AK-47, but it has to be, for the most part, a lot of it has to be made here. Is that a good thing? Well, if you want to pay $1,000 for a decent AK, it's not a good thing. Or if you're okay with paying $1,000, I guess it doesn't matter. The days of getting an AK-47 for $300 are over. And I suspect that China would have continued to dump those weapons into the United States to the point where you could have probably at some point bought an AK-47 for $50. You know, I mean, it's $1. It's not a great knife, but I guarantee you it's going to eat into the bottom line of American knife manufacturers. So anyway, when we're talking about the Second Amendment, it's a little trickier, because anytime you do anything to restrict citizens' availability to firearms, never a good thing. So I don't know. Like I said, I'm not making excuses for them, but you know, I will tell you this much. I don't know what Mitt Romney is going to do, but I do know one thing. I feel pretty confident that he ain't going to pull no bullshit in his first term. I know for a fact that Barack Obama is going to try to pass gun legislation. He got nothing to lose. He wants to. He said that he wants to. I can only take the man at his word. If you watch the second debate, when he said things like, guns that were manufactured for the battlefield have no business in civilian hands. You see these guns over here? AK-47, AR-15 over here, SKS. You know, I'm not a rocket scientist, but I could smell what Barack was cooking. I mean, literally, I could smell what Barack was cooking. You know, that's the thing. And he's already shown himself to be a person that is quite willing to rule by decree, regardless of what the Congress has to say about it. It's just something to think about, you know. But more importantly than whether or not Barack Obama is going to attempt to ban guns, more importantly is this. Thus far, in his first 4 years, he has appointed, let's see here, I want to make sure I get these numbers right. He has appointed 160 judges to the federal bench. 160. There are currently 11 vacancies that he will fill. Yeah, he will fill. You know, and these judges that he's appointing to the federal bench, you know, they're not gun friendly, I can tell you that much right now. So a lot of people get, you know, they get caught up in the Supreme Court, which is important. We don't need any more Supreme Court judges appointed by Barack Obama. None. Zero. Zilch. It's bad enough that the Republicans apparently nominate rhinos, with the exception of a few. God bless, you know, Clarence Thomas. But I think we pretty much know the kind of rulings that we can expect from the Obama Supreme Court judges. But that's the Supreme Court. There's a whole lot more judicial activism going on in the lower courts. And I'm going to tell you right now, I don't think people understand how many ultra-liberal judges he's appointing to the bench. And, you know, a lot of people don't realize this too, but the federal, the judges that he nominates, they all have to be confirmed by the Senate. Well, guess what? The Senate is controlled by the Democrats. So if you feel comfortable with Obama loading up some more left-wing activist judges, anti-gun left-wing activist judges to the Supreme Court, then he's your man. He's your man. My attitude about it is this. Mitt Romney may not be a staunch conservative, and I wouldn't even begin to pretend that he is. But I know what Barack Obama is. You know, I know what he said. I know what he said. And I know the judges that he has appointed. You can look it up. It's all matter of public record. Look at some of the judges that he's appointed to the federal bench. Look at their records. Now, forget the Supreme Court. I mean, it's huge. But just lay it aside and do your homework. On November 6th, you got an important decision to make. Do your homework. These federal judges that Barack Obama's been appointing to the bench are not gun-friendly judges. Now, will Mitt's be gun-friendly? Probably not, but they're not going to be activist extremists, or at least I would hope not. And here's the thing. Mitt's not going to do anything stupid his first term. I am the first one to admit that we may have to find a challenger for the Republican nomination. And that's not unheard of. Jimmy Carter had to fight off, I know Ted Kennedy. I think there was a couple of Democrats that took him on for the nomination. He ended up getting it and then got trounced by Reagan. But I mean, we have 4 years. We get Mitt in there, we have 4 years to figure out what we're going to do. Well, not quite 4 years, but I think you understand what I'm trying to say. We put Romney back in there, we're screwed. I don't see any other way to look at it. We are screwed. Unless you're not, you know, I mean, if you got a Daisy, you know, Red Ryder, you're good. Well, you have less to worry about. I don't know that you're good. But anyway, listen, I could go on and on about this. Van is a very intelligent man. And I know this for a fact. I've talked to him many, many times. He's very passionate about his beliefs. He's a passionate man in general. He's a good guy. He has a great channel. He loves firearms. Check out his video. You know, check out his video. I think he made a compelling argument, a thoughtful argument, and he's right that we have to keep an eye on Republicans. But we have to keep an eye on all those bastards. You know, for me, I gotta go with Mitt. Got to. I don't see any other choice, to be honest with you. You know, I mean, and I know that there are people that, you know, the saying that, well, you know, Democrats talk about taking your guns, Republicans do it. Well, when you hear people tell that little story, remind them that there were Democrats right there along with it. The Republican presidents basically just signed the bill. They shouldn't have. They should not have done that. Right. So anyway, that's all I got for you. Let me know about my sound. Like I said, I'm trying to get it right. Hopefully I am. There shouldn't be any kind of goofy noises from the fan. There might have been at one point the furnace kicked on. So there, you know, and I didn't close the door to the furnace room, so that could be an issue, but I'm working on it. Let me know what you think. Everybody take care. See ya!